Attention, attention. There is a Patreon giveaway thanks to a current patron. They agreed to give up one of their very nice knives in a raffle for new patrons. So if you've been convicted, you've listened for a while, you think you want to become a patron of Gunfighter Life or the Alpha Male podcast, perhaps this will be that push you've been looking for. It is a K-Bar Folding Hunter. Now, K-Bar is a good knife company, and I don't think I have to explain that if you're into this kind of stuff. K-Bar is a legendary knife company. This is a very good knife that looks very suitable for EDC. Now, I don't know how big you think this group is, but I have less than a dozen patrons at the time of this recording. And that's total. So who knows how many will join this month. So I'd say if you want to join, your chances are probably pretty good. I made a post on Patreon. You can go to the Patreon page without being a patron. Some stuff is just for patrons. In fact, most stuff is just for patrons. But there's a few videos on there you can watch that are just for the public, for everybody. And I did a post for the public, for everybody. So if you want to go see the details or see a picture of this knife, go over to Patreon. It is the main source of income for this podcast. This is for the month of November in the year of our Lord 2022. What is going on, gunfighters? I hope that all is well in your world. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle, and I hope yours as well. Today's episode is going to be the tactical shotgun. Perhaps the most practical shotgun. Why tactical shotguns are good for a lot more than just tactical door kicking and breaching, which they're good for that too. Now, I'll expound on that in today's topic. If you want to support the show, go to goodshepherdtraining.com. I'll plug in the bio, and then we'll get into the main topic. Who am I? A question we should all ask ourselves. I am, first and foremost, a servant of God, made in His very own image. A follower of Jesus Christ. A simple man called by God to the Great Commission to share the good news of Jesus Christ. Next, a little bit about my background and what God has allowed me to do and blessed me to do in life. Grew up what most would consider very poor, in the backwoods of the southeastern and mid-Atlantic United States, hunting and fishing. Joined the Marine Corps at 17. Did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. So a decorated Marine Corps combat veteran. Infantry assaultman. After the combat tours, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. Also a veteran of law enforcement. I served with LAPD. I was a sworn peace officer, a cop for LAPD. I worked regular patrol assignments and more specialized assignments. One of those more specialized assignments was warrant service, fugitive recovery. Also had some other law enforcement roles. I am an FBI certified firearms instructor and been certified by another 3-letter government agency in a lot of firearms and training things. I've also been a private contractor, worked in the private sector pertaining to tactics and gunfighting and protecting America from enemies foreign and domestic. I served as the commander of a tactical team to stop active shooters in a large metropolitan area. That was our primary mission, to stop active shooters, which sadly are a thing in America today. I've also been blessed to do quite a bit of competition shooting. Started my first formal competitions even before joining the Marine Corps at 17. I had won more shooting competitions than I can remember. I have competed in all manner of disciplines in shooting. I've been blessed to be a state rifle and pistol champion, West Coast regional champion. Like I said, been blessed to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. Mentioned hunting. I've hunted to put meat on the table starting when I was a child. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide, hunting and slaying all manner of beast. And I don't apologize for that. Humbled to be the host of 3 podcasts. Simple Man Sermons, Alpha Male Podcast, and Gunfighter Life. Obviously, as things not mentioned, I've been blessed to do many other things. But, again, first and foremost, I'm a servant of God, a believer and follower of the Bible, the Word, Jesus Christ. And I don't apologize for that. With that, let's transition into today's topic. Now, if you've listened for any length of time, you'll know that I think the shotgun is the most versatile, most utilitarian, and most well-rounded tool. A lot of people, especially in this kind of community, like to play that thought experiment. If I could only have one long gun. Well, if I could only have one long gun, it would be a shotgun. It would be what most would consider a tactical shotgun. And I'll explain why later. A lot of people would pick the .22 for carrying ammo and whatever. I wouldn't. I would pick the shotgun, and I've covered that in other episodes. Just look up Gunfighter Life and shotgun. There should be a bunch that comes up. However, the shotgun to me is the most versatile tool. It's the only gun where I can reliably take, let's say, a mourning dove and eat it after I shoot it, unlike if I shot it with an AR, most likely. And I could stop a charging grizzly bear. In fact, it's what a lot of guides use to stop charging grizzly bears, is a 12 gauge with slugs. It's completely unique in that, like, you can change ammo in, let's say, your 270 to shoot 130 grain or 150 grain, but pretty much they're doing the same thing. You're a medium to large game round. You know, with a 9mm, you can load 115 grain, 147 grain. You can load full metal jackets or hollow points, but it's pretty narrow in the scope of things that it can do. The shotgun is unique in its versatility. It is unique in the fact that I can load up birdshot and again shoot a mourning dove or a quail. I can go a little bit bigger shot and I can shoot turkey and ducks and geese. I can go a little bit bigger and shoot coyote. I can get into my buckshot, which I like, number 4 buck or number 4 double-aught, great for defensive use. It is almost unarguably, some people would argue, but from statistics, the most likely to change somebody's bad behavior in one shot is, a full payload of double-aught buck or a slug. It is great for defense. I've covered that in other episodes as well, but when I was a police officer, LAPD, I worked regular assignments and more specialized assignments. When I was in my role as a law enforcement officer, I had access to all kinds of guns. At one point, I was helping out in the armory, and I had access to full autos, full auto M4. That was one of my go-to guns for certain missions, a full auto M4 or Car 15. Even still had old Thompson submachine guns, Tommy guns in the arsenal in the armory that we could take out. But when it came to going into a house and wanting to come out breathing and alive on the other side to clear a house, I almost always grab the 12-gauge shotgun. Why? Because it's the best tool for the job. I don't care what looks cool on Instagram with fast mag changes and super high speed nods and PEC 2s mounted to it and a bunch of space age battery powered stuff strapped onto it. I wanted a Remington 870 12-gauge shotgun with slugs and buck because it was the best tool for the job. It was most likely to keep me breathing at the end of that day. And for CQB stuff inside a room and urban warfare distances mostly, it is unrivaled in its power and versatility. Not only is it good for that, big game stuff, we talked about deer, stopping bear, stuff like that. It's also got quite a bit of specialty rounds. You've got door breaching, again, urban warfare or whatever the case may be. If I want to open a lock, open a door, and I know what you're doing, don't just take a regular round and do that. You're likely to hurt yourself. But they do make breaching rounds. You are able to do that with them. You've got signaling rounds. You've got less lethal rounds, which could still be lethal if used incorrectly, but less lethal rounds. Not everything is a deadly force situation. Again, you have a lot of versatility with that. Now, a lot would argue that the most versatile shotgun would be just a regular hunting shotgun with, let's say, your 28-inch vent rib beaded sight barrel. And I'd say that's a good choice. It is by far, I think, a better choice and more versatile than an AR or a pistol if you're talking about pure versatility. But even though I have those and have access to those, my one gun is a tactical shotgun as opposed to a sporting shotgun. And I'm going to expound on that. I'm going to explain why. A sporting shotgun, it's kind of in the name, sporting. The way we hunt today, realize we don't hunt today the most effective or efficient way. We hunt today for most people hunt for sport. And most of the regulations written in the government regulations and the rules and the laws are for sport. Think about it critically. If you were in a survival situation and you had to eat, would you A, try and shoot a dove out of the air flying at 60 miles an hour crossing you? Or would you B, wait till it landed on something and shoot it when it wasn't moving? Would you try and shoot ducks coming in and a landing where if you miss they're going to take off again? Or would you sneak up on them in the body of water and shoot the duck in the water when it's landed and quiet and not moving and it takes a while for them to get up and fly? Or perhaps even wait until there's a group of them together, which they like to do in the water, and shoot several of them at once. The answers to those questions are obvious. If you're talking about shooting fast-moving objects out of the air, yes, your traditional vent rib sporting shotgun is a better tool for that. Again, that's sporting purpose. I'm not saying those shots never come up. You know, a lot of times you do get that fleeting shot at a jumping, bounding jackrabbit or cottontail, or you flush a covey of grouse or quail when you're walking along. But if we're talking about, let's talk about the most useful, versatile survival tool. I like sights on a shotgun. That whole myth about you don't have to aim a shotgun is blatantly wrong. You do have to aim a shotgun. And sometimes, again, that vent rib shotgun is better, but I know that you can do this because I've shot skeet with, what you'd call tactical style shotguns. It's not as good, but you can certainly do it, and it's certainly a lot easier to hit birds out of the air than with something like an AR or a 22. But again, if I'm doing it to eat and I have a finite amount of ammunition, I'd much rather, if I have the chance, wait for that. I would much rather wait for that dove, let's say, to land somewhere and shoot it then, or wait for that duck to not be flying through the air to shoot it. Again, I'm not talking about a sporting purpose. I have a sporting shotgun and a sporting barrel for sporting purpose. If I'm going out to hunt pheasants, then that's what I'll put on there, because of the way we legally have to hunt them and do that in most places. But let's say I'm in a suburban environment and I've gotten to the point where I'm eating pigeons. Pigeons were brought to this country for food. And although you may turn your nose up at it, there's really nothing different between them and most other game birds. So if you're doing that, are you going to shoot the ones flying through the air if you have a finite amount of ammo and ammo is ridiculously expensive or valuable? Or are you going to wait till they land on something and shoot one or two or maybe more of them at a time when they're up in the perch of some kind of structure that you can safely shoot them out of? The obvious advantage is in using slugs. There's a reason that peep sights were the norm on, let's say, military-style rifles for a long, long time, and only recently, very recently, have been started to be replaced by optical sights. And I've recently been experimenting with optical sights on one of my go-to shotguns. So I think they do have a place, but even your traditional peep sight, they give a ridiculous amount of accuracy. I've run several Benellis over the years, and one of my go-to shotguns is a Benelli now with a 18-inch rifle sight. It's got the traditional rifle-sighted barrel, and that thing is crazy accurate. And my one before it, my Benelli M1, was crazy accurate, to the point where if it was a rifle, I would be happy with its accuracy. It doesn't have the same range, but inside 150 yards, it's ridiculously accurate, and certainly more accurate than would be needed for taking out any kind of large game or defensive use. It's just really accurate. Now, arguably, if it had exactly the same barrel, like a vent rib barrel, the gun mechanically would be just as accurate. But I would have a much harder time realizing that accuracy because I just don't have the precision in aiming with a bead sight or a vent rib barrel that I would have with a peep sight. That's why they exist. You know, there are no militaries running around in the past 100 years with vent rib rifles. They have more traditional rifle sights like your AK or your military peep sights. You can get the same thing on a shotgun. Also, most sporting shotguns have a 28-inch barrel. That's pretty much a standard. Some even have longer, 30, 32, even longer barrels. And that's not for velocity. You know, if you ever reloaded shotgun and pistol, you know that most shotguns use pistol powders. You don't really need that long a barrel to gain more velocity. Look at the numbers to bear that out. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research. But what you generally get if you're shooting a rib is you get a more clear view of the target, and you're more likely to notice if you lift your head off of that gun, which is probably one of the most common reasons for missing with a sporting shotgun, is lifting your head a little bit off that vent rib and you shoot high. So that's the reason for the longer barrel. But if you have a peep sight, you can get away with a much shorter barrel, which is good for a lot of scenarios: hunting in thick brush, hunting in cover, obviously your tactical scenarios. Now, most places require only 3 rounds for a sporting shotgun. So even if you get a tactical shotgun and you want to hunt with it prior to some kind of without rule of law scenario, you got to put a plug in it, which is kind of silly. But most tactical shotguns, you take the plug out, you'll have far greater capacity than you would in your traditional sporting shotgun. Now, I'm going to be clear, I don't think that's a main criteria. Your traditional 870, Mossberg 500, Remington 1100, 5 rounds of double-aught buck ought to solve any problem that you have, and if you don't, 7 rounds probably isn't going to solve it any better. But if your gun can hold more ammo, why not have it hold more ammo? Tactical shotguns generally do that. My go-to tactical shotguns hold anywhere between, I believe, 7 and 13 rounds. At the time this comes out, you should have already had access to a episode on deer hunting and bear hunting with a shotgun. I have done quite a bit of hunting in my life with a shotgun, mostly because I grew up poor and hunted for food, and the shotgun was a inexpensive way that I could go out into the woods and bring stuff home for food. So I grew up hunting with a shotgun, and they can be quite effective for deer, and I've actually taken my largest bear to date with a shotgun. And it was in a place where it was totally legal for me to take a rifle. I was in thick manzanita bushes, and the shotgun, in my opinion, was the best tool for the job. And for any kind of hunting where you're going to be shooting buckshot or slugs, and you're going to want to aim, as in big game hunting, though those better sighting abilities that you have on a tactical shotgun are great. And shotguns, the Mossberg 500, the Remington 870, things like them, the Benelli M1, M2, M3s, M4s, they're known for reliability. It's not as though, unless you did some weird crazy thing and modified it in a way you weren't supposed to, a tactical shotgun is going to be just as reliable, just as robust, just as forgiving of harsh environments and neglect. So you get all that reliability, and generally in a handier package with more capacity, with a better sighting system. And again, I'm not saying to throw away all your sporting shotguns and just go to tactical shotguns, because the way the laws read now, they make hunting harder. It's sporting to shoot a duck out of the air instead of just walking up on a pond and seeing them in the water and shooting them and bringing them home for food. I don't really understand this. I like to hunt primarily for meat. I do enjoy the outdoors and I do enjoy the challenge of it, but if I'm hunting for meat and I'm allowed 2 ducks a day, I don't see what difference it makes how I shoot them and how much ammo I waste shooting them. But that being said, the way the laws are written in a lot of places today, a sporting shotgun is the best for, let's say, hunting quail over dogs, or hunting pheasants, or hunting ducks. But the tactical shotgun has a lot of applicability even today for your one defensive gun, for room clearing, for home defense, and for deer hunting, and for, let's say, turkey hunting, which we'll get into a little bit later. But turkey hunting is done much like deer hunting or bear hunting with a shotgun, where you actually have to aim. And for that reason, you'll see a lot of turkey shotguns kind of blurring that line between tactical and sporting. In fact, I think they have much more in common with a tactical shotgun, the turkey-built shotguns, than a traditional sporting shotgun. They'll generally have decent sights. A lot of them will have shorter barrels. A lot of them will even have pistol grips. Now, you could argue whether a pistol grip is good or bad. I prefer not to have them on even my tactical shotguns. But a lot of turkey shotguns, if you look at them, besides some really cool Gucci camo de jour, is pretty much a tactical shotgun. Why? Because that's how you hunt turkeys. You aim like you would aim most other guns. You're not trying to shoot a turkey flying in the air most of the time. And if you're not trying to shoot any other game birds out of the air because you want to conserve ammo, then I would submit it has just as much applicability and advantage there. So back to the original statement. The tactical shotgun, to me, is perhaps the most practical shotgun. And a close second there, if you don't want the aesthetics, or you don't want the unwanted attention, or you're worried about jurors in a courtroom or something, the turkey shotgun. In fact, when I was looking for a good all-around lighter weight reconnoitering recon shotgun, I wanted a 20 gauge. You might not believe it, but I'm not a gun collector. I don't have a ton of guns. My wife may disagree, but I don't think I have very many guns. And I didn't have any sub-caliber shotguns. They were all 12 gauges, but I wanted something lighter and handier to walk around a lot, especially in the canyon lands and different environments of Arizona, doing long walks and things like that, where I might take a coyote, I might take big game, I might take quail and doves, but I was certainly going to cover a lot of ground. Anyway, I went with a turkey shotgun for all the reasons stated above. You know, the turkey shotgun, except for a cool camo pattern, is basically a tactical shotgun if you look at them, many of them. They'll generally have a shorter barrel. Assuming they have interchangeable chokes, that's a moot point. It might come with an extra full choke, but just put whatever choke you want in it. They're light, they're handy. They generally have good sights. If not quite as good as a purely tactical shotgun, they're a very close second for home defense and things like that. And that's not me. I generally don't worry about those kind of things. Worry about problem number one first. I want the best tool for the job. If somebody is trying to break in and kill me and my family, my number one priority is to not let them do that. And whatever the best tool for the job is, that's what I want. That being said, a lot of people spend a lot of time thinking about what a jury may or may not say, or convict or not convict or whatever. That being said, a turkey shotgun does not look tactical at all, even though it very much is. So if you wanted a more quasi crossover between tactical and traditional sporting hunting shotgun, a turkey model might be the way to go. And if it has good sights, it has a good stock that fits you, it has a lot of those attributes, a shorter barrel, then yeah, it's got a lot of the same things. So that might be a place to look as well. The flip side of that, if you have, hitherto been mostly a black rifle, AR-15, Glock 19 kind of guy, you've been in the tactical world and you want to get into hunting, assuming you apply with all legal laws and restrictions, like putting a giant plug in your shotgun to take it from holding 9 rounds to holding 3, right? You can take that tactical shotgun, and it is a fine, well, probably, I don't know what shotgun you have, but it's probably a very fine deer hunting implement. You don't need a $2,000 rifle with a $1,500 optic and a four-wheeler to go hunt deer. You can very easily do it with your tactical 870 with a box of slugs from Walmart and a box of buckshot from Walmart, depending on the environment that you're in. So if you already have a tactical shotgun, don't think that you cannot hunt with it. In fact, I do quite a bit of my hunting with a tactical shotgun. I like to be proficient with the things I'm going to rely on, and like I started with in the beginning, if I had to pick just one long gun, barring any extenuating circumstances, if I had to pick that one gun, it would be a shotgun. And I have a Scar 17 with a very nice optic sitting right beside my Benelli. But if it's just carte blanche, without rule of law, the chocolate and peanut butter has hit the fan, I'm grabbing that Benelli or maybe even the Mossberg, which is a much cheaper much cheaper weapon. Last time I looked at what Scar 17 cost, I couldn't believe it. I was happy that by God's grace I was able to afford one making that big city money years ago when they were way cheaper. But anyway, just going back to the same thing I was talking about when I was a police officer. I don't care what looks cool on Instagram or that the Scar 17 is a way cooler looking weapon and that mine's got Cryptek style camo on it or whatever. I want what's going to keep me breathing and my family fed. And the best tool for that in most situations is a shotgun. And if I don't know what situations are going to arise, if I'm pulling, security on a ranch and my job is to keep an eye on the fence line, probably want a longer range weapon. If I don't know what the environment's going to be or what I'm going to have to do or what's going to be available for food, I'm going to take that shotgun. And that being said, I'm almost certainly, if I have access to it, going to take a tactical shotgun. I did for a long time, and I still think that they are, the old Remington 870 police models, one of the finest shotguns ever made. Sadly, Remington went bankrupt. They've come and gone. I really wouldn't recommend their quality lately. If you're going to get a good tactical shotgun that's, I'd say, the best value, get a Mossberg 500. I honestly do think that I shoot the 870 better. I've tested them side by side, but their quality is so bad now I can't in good conscience recommend them. The Mossberg 500s, I don't think they've had really any quality control issues that I'm aware of, and maybe ever. I do like semi-autos, and a lot of people like pumps. I think they mostly like them because they're cheap. They say they don't malfunction, but I've run enough training and seen enough training that I know that mechanically they may be very reliable, but a lot of people, when they get scared or injured or whatever, they don't fully cycle that action fully back and fully forward. And if you do that, you induce a malfunction. And I don't care how the malfunction gets induced, once it's jammed and I'm in a life or death situation, that's a bad thing. If you get a good quality semi-auto, I think they're much better. I can fire them one-handed. I have less propensity to induce a malfunction if I'm injured or lost blood or I'm trying to do two things at once. That being said, a good reliable semi-auto shotgun is way, way more than a good reliable pump shotgun. So if you're trying to do a bunch of other preparedness survival stuff, you don't have a bunch of food already laid up or whatever, I'd say get the pump shotgun. You generally won't regret having a good pump shotgun. If you're talking about reliable semi-autos, I know of only one that I would recommend. I know a lot of people like the Mossbergs and stuff. For a lot of reasons, I prefer Benelli inertia-driven guns. Inertial-driven guns, they don't have holes in the barrel that vent gas back and make the internal firing mechanisms dirty. The big reason a lot of people don't like ARs is because they do that. If you want to think of the inertia-driven system, kind of like if you think of a lot of semi-auto shotguns, the gas guns as they're called, they do shoot a little bit softer, but I consider those kind of like the direct impingement where they throw a bunch of dirty stuff back in the operating system like an AR. You can think of the inertial-driven systems like the Benelli to be more like an AK, but even cleaner because all that gas goes out the end of the barrel. Doesn't even get a gas piston dirty. It's literally the inertia that unlocks the bolt and drives the bolt backwards and chambers another round. That being said, I'd be hard-pressed between the two because you do have a minimum that you can cycle with a semi-auto shotgun, whereas my Mossberg 590S will shoot the short shells, so it'll shoot the much smaller, I think, 1 3/4 shells. So it lets me carry more ammo, and most semi-autos, I don't think any semi-autos will cycle those shells. So I'd be hard-pressed between the two. I may go out to the range later this week and do a showdown between the two shotguns and see which one I would pick. Anyway, those are my thoughts. The tactical shotgun as the most practical shotgun. I just want to take a moment to say that I am humbled that you listen to this podcast. I am humbled for everyone that supports this podcast. I'm a very blessed man, and I'm very appreciative of everybody that is a part of this podcast. Tactical tip of the day. It's a good exercise whether you are doing it with a rifle for hunting season or you're doing it for getting ready for some kind of survival scenario or just for fun. Just remember plinking. Remember when you just get a brick of 22 ammo with your buddy and go out in the woods and shoot stuff for fun? This is kind of like that. Sporting clays, despite inflation, probably aren't that expensive. Get a box of sporting clays. Hopefully you live somewhere out west or somewhere with some open land. You can walk along a wadi or a gully if you're back east, or a gulch if you're out west, whatever your vernacular is, somewhere you can safely shoot in multiple directions with having a safe backstop, and set these targets up at different distances. Maybe you set them up sometimes as a single target, sometimes as 2 or 3 targets, so you have to hit them multiple times. You can do this with a shotgun, you can do it with a 22, you can do it with your deer rifle. You may take some spray paint and spray paint them different colors. They come orange, that'd be your base color. And let's say orange, you could shoot however you wanted to. But if you painted it white, you had to shoot it from the standing. And if you painted it blue, you'd have to shoot it from the kneeling. And you could make all kinds of cool and fun exercises. If you want to get somebody into shooting, after they get the basics down on a square range, take them on a cool little walk in a wadi or a wash with a bunch of sporting clays and a Ruger 10/22. Talk about a good fun day and practical. There's only so much that you're going to develop on a square range. So just a box of sporting clays for a few dollars and have some kind of 3-dimensional, varying distance, varying kind of shots where you're walking along and you see a target, you're walking along a little bit farther, you see some more targets, you got to shoot from the kneeling. Very practical, and will probably do much more for your hunting and tactical proficiency than after you have the basics down, going to an indoor flat range over and over and over again. Anyway, that's the tactical tip of the day. Hopefully you've been waiting for this part, the tactical verse of the day. From 2 Samuel. The Lord lives. Blessed be my rock. Let God be exalted, the rock of my salvation. It is God who avenges me and subdues the people under me. He delivers me from my enemies. You also lift me up above those who rise against me. You have delivered me from violent man. Therefore I will give thanks to you, O Lord, among the Gentiles. That certainly strikes a chord with me. And it reminds me of one of my favorite verses, Exodus 15. The Lord is a man of war, and I am made in his image. With that, men, thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.